All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahawashi, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash.
Breaking tonight, Russian President Vladimir Putin telling the West to back off. This comes amid international concern over his troop buildup on the Ukraine border. Here in the U.S., one top military commander says the chances of nuclear war are actually increasing. National security correspondent Jennifer Griffin tells us about it tonight from the Pentagon.
Russian President Vladimir Putin issued a stark warning to the U.S. and NATO during his annual State of the Nation address to Parliament.
I hope that no one dares to cross the red line in respect to Russia, and we will determine where it is in each specific case.
Putin spoke as Russia continues a massive military buildup on the border with Ukraine. New satellite images show dozens of fighter jets lined up on tarmacs in southern Russia and Crimea. Top U.S. military commanders warned that new threats facing the U.S. have them seriously worried for the first time that U.S. adversaries may consider using a nuclear weapon as the, quote, least bad option. The admiral in charge of America's nuclear arsenal says it's the first time in history the U.S. has had to deter two nuclear powers at the same time, Russia and China.
I cannot deter with the leftovers of the Cold War forever into the future. That is a 70-era weapon system that I'm going to have to employ against 2030 level threats.
Some Democrats want to scrap one leg of the nuclear triad, the 400 ground-based missiles currently in silos across 3 states. The head of Strategic Command says he needs to replace, not update, those 50-year-old Minuteman III missiles. Democrats don't like the price tag.
You know, we're currently spending $44.5 billion a year on nuclear weapons. And I know that Stratcom likes spending that money, but I don't.
The U.S. stopped keeping nuclear-capable bombers like these B-52s in Louisiana on 24-hour alert in 1991. But Admiral Richard warns if the U.S. scraps its ground-based missiles, it would have to rely too much on submarine-launched nukes.
And under those conditions, I would request to re-alert the bombers.
Putin boasted today that Russia will have modernized more than 88% of its nuclear weapons by the end of this year. Admiral Richard says the U.S. hasn't started. Brett?
Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. Jennifer, thank you.
All right, shalom, brothers and sisters in this truth. I'm your brother, Mr. LJ, and as you can see in that video, you know, Putin means business, okay? You know, these nations basically sick and tired of America, also known as Great Babylon, for meddling into their business and bullying them around, okay? So what I came up with was a presentation to compare America's downfall and eventual destruction to the career of Mike Tyson. I gave it this name here: the U.S. influence and global superiority is comparable to the career of Mike Tyson. And it's a basic analysis using the scriptures to support the prophetic and climatic downfall of Babylon America. So as you can see here, you know, Mike Tyson back in his days, in his youth, like America, was a very fearsome warrior. And America, being the youngest of these nations, has exalted itself to be this warrior, wealthy warrior, actually, to the point of being able to consume the entire world under its rulership and dictatorship. In reality, it's like the scripture Deuteronomy 28:50 says, "A nation of fierce countenance, which should not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young." And this is a nation that has actually have done exactly that. When they dropped that nuclear weapon, you know, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it killed kids, it killed old people, it killed warriors, it killed everybody, you know, that was in that blast radius. Same with Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson was when he was up and coming, he he beat up and knocked out Thomas Pinklin. He knocked out Larry Holmes. These are all older fighters. Even the younger fighters, and the fighters his age, he was knocking them out to eventually become the youngest champion, the youngest heavyweight champion in history. So very fierce man, Mike Tyson was. Basically, you look at him and he had the speed, the power. You know, his neck was almost as thick as his waistline. So he was something that when individuals would see him, I mean, they would literally just shake in their pants. They lost before they even got into the fight. So, you know, the same thing with the United States. You know, after the United States clearly ended World War II with the atomic bomb dropped on Japan, you know, even though Great Britain was struggling with the other allies against Germany and Mussolini at that time, you know, and nobody for 5 years could challenge the United States. I mean, it was the, you know, premier, the top nation on earth. You know, comes 1962. You know, of course, the technology, you know, the technology that the United States acquired came from a lot of those scientists, Einstein. I can't remember some of the other ones there that worked on the all the different projects to create the atomic bomb. But you know, in 1962 they had the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Khrushchev at that time was the president of Russia, known as the USSR, and Kennedy was the president of the United States. And you know, at that time, you know, Kennedy gave Russia an ultimatum to remove their ships, you know, and dismantle that nuclear base that they were looking to set up. You know, they were looking to get that strategic, you know, advantage on the U.S. by setting up, you know, ICBMs at that time, or be able to shoot their short-range nuke missile or to the coast of the United States. And just like that, you know, the United States was able to punk Russia during that time. Now, moving forward, you know, as time went by, you know, the dominance of the world became that of Babylon. You know, I mean, the music, you're talking about the culture, everything. I mean, this is a melting pot in which it brought the best of everybody to come into. And of course, we as Israelites were here a slave during the entire time, contributed to that, because, you know, this nation got very wealthy off our back, of our blood. All right. So, you know, as they say, you know, Proverbs 18:11-12 says, the rich man's wealth is a strong city, and as a high wall in its own conceit. Before destruction, the heart of a man is hardy, and before honor is humility. And as you can see here, those of you who are old enough remember, you know, remember the Reaganomics, the 80s, you know, the golden 50s, the golden, the 60s, you know, with the psychedelic music, the 70s, with disco, 80s, you know, pop. I mean, all of these inventions and everything. And then you look at here, you know, Mike Tyson, you know, he's holding up all this money, and at this time he's enticed with, you know, Don King. You know, he had let go of his original trainers, because at this time, I mean, he had been dominating so much that he really wasn't really focused on boxing so much and really training, because he had dominated. Okay, so you can see here, you know, America has spoiled the earth you know, throughout the years. You know, going around and spreading its culture all over the place here. You know, Mike Tyson, he was a ladies' man. I mean, you know, he bought a lot of cars. He paid a lot of people money to be around him. You know, he had an entourage everywhere he went. And, you know, he thought that this was going to be forever. I mean, he was the man at that time. You know, as the book of Psalm 49:11 says, their inward thought is that their household should continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generation. They call their lands after their own names. And you can see here, they had a video game made up after Mike Tyson. You know, Punch Out. You know, all these different things was to exalt, you know, to exalt him to this level of untouchable, unbeatable. You know, the same thing with the United States. The United States at that time, I mean, you know, had just basically no one can challenge the United States. Basically after World War II, nobody. Okay, even during the Cold War, you know, Russia was just kind of developing itself. It was still kind of a what would be considered a poor nation, or you could say the USSR did not have nowhere near the wealth of the United States. Now, remember what I said, you know, in the book of Psalm there, the rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as a high wall in its own conceit. Before destruction, the heart of a man is hardy, and before honor is humility. And this is what happened to Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson eventually, as he was not training anymore because he was exalting himself and all of these riches, he eventually went and lost to Buster Douglas. And you can see how does that associate with the United States? The United States basically started to get sloppy, started closing a lot of the bases down, stopped spending money really on the defense system, especially after the the Cold War kind of sort of ended. It had all the allies, and it had Japan in its back pocket. It had South Korea. And everywhere that the United States had gone, it basically had set up base and started building these bases all around the world. So basically, at that time, there was no need for them to really, no need for the United States to really continuously, flex his muscle. And so that's the same thing you see with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson got very undisciplined, okay? And he was no longer interested in training the way he was doing, And so, this led to some of those things that is going to be coming to the United States the same way too. And it says, 2nd Ezra 16:1-3 says, "Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. Gird up yourselves with cloths of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. A sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it?" And this is the same thing that started to happen to Mike Tyson. As you can see here, Mike Tyson got divorced from Robin Given. Robin Given went and humiliated him on national television. He was accused of rape. People started suing Mike Tyson, saying that he assaulted them, outside of nightclubs and everything like that. So now, he had come from his glory of being the undisputed champion to now starting to really become really demoralized and become an immoral person. And this is the same thing with America. Remember now, if you look at the dollar bill, it says "In God We Trust," which we know God is gold, oil, and drug. But this country always talk about the being found on the basis of God. We know as Yahweh, Bashim Yahawashi, they call it God or Jesus. So it acted like it was a very spiritual nation, but it started to get very more demoralized. You started to notice the movies and the music started changing in the late 80s and the 1990s. And they started putting censorship on things, and it got challenged and then overthrown. And so the moral decay of America started to fall apart. And this is what you see started happening to Mike Tyson as his career started to spin out of control. He eventually went to prison. He comes out and he's fighting these chump guys. This guy is really a guy that works, as a bartender. And, he fought a couple other guys and they try to, bring him back to be the champion again. He ended up winning 2 belts, from paper champions that were, guys who were champion during the time that he was incarcerated, supposed to come back, and that's the same thing you see with America. America, started going overseas and fighting, in these third world countries. So no longer was America really fighting a great enemy anymore, like Japan, when they faced Japan and they had the battle in the Pacific. They were now fighting, going in these in what is called third world countries and fighting these brown countries. And this is when America really started showing its horn, is going around and really being aggressive and just setting up these phantom terrorist organization all over the world, and just going to these countries and taking their wealth and their goods and doing that. And we can see this as brothers and sisters in this truth of how they've done all of these wicked things. Okay. And as things started to go by, America lost some of those wars too. The same way Mike Tyson lost against Holyfield, who was a couple of years older than him, and he was supposed to beat really very easily. America did not win all of its little skirmishes all over the place. For example, like, remember the movie Black Hawk Down? Those are people who took those special forces out with sticks and stones. Okay, and there were several other skirmishes. They had to go back to Iraq again, to to go take out Saddam, because it didn't even work with 23 nations going against him the first time in the 1990s. And so you can see where, Mike Tyson, he actually met an opponent that actually was supposed to be no competition for him, that actually he lost to, and eventually what you notice that he started doing afterward. He started going into the WWE to hold hands with these little fairies that, these little sodomites that, rub up on top of each other every week, pretend like they're fighting, and you can see where he became more of like an entertainment. And you can say that's the same thing what started happening with the U.S. The U.S. starting to really kind of like just spread more of its culture, and when things doesn't happen its way, it started to like say, okay, let's go to the negotiation table and we're gonna talk about it. And you can see that happening with countries like North Korea and Iran and other little smaller countries that are saying, hey man, we want a bigger piece of the pie, and expand our influence over this world too. And so you can relate this to Isaiah 14:10, where it says, all they speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? And you can see here, I mean, these guys right here, right now, don't have any respect for Tyson. Tyson is not scary at this point. You get this guy, Shawn Michaels, poking him in the chest. You've got this guy here, this Edomite bald head guy here, Steve Austin. He even sat down in a conference, whether they were pretending or not, and told Tyson he'll whoop his ass. That why? Because they saw this. They saw Mike Tyson, fighting chumps like this, and losing to a guy losing to Evander Holyfield, who he was supposed to beat, and the betting odds were in his favor. So that's why they actually had that kind of spirit, that he was no longer the baddest man on the planet anymore, that he was weak. Okay, and this is where you see now that disrespect that's starting to come to be shown to America now from these other nations, and that leads into basically this, which becomes very critical, that's going on with America. And it says this is from Job 20 and 22, 22 to 28, Salakia, and I'm going to read the whole entire thing for you and break it down. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he's about to fill his belly, Yahweh shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. I'm going to pause there for a second. So you can see here what started to happen to Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson started losing fights. He got knocked out by Lennox Lewis. He got knocked out by this guy, McBride. He even resorted to biting Evander Holyfield in the second fight. And he got knocked out by Danny Green. He was arrested for drugs numerous times. He had a second divorce. So now this is started costing him money, because he lived a very lavish lifestyle. So he was very undisciplined. There was no order in his life. So basically now you saw how that worked, how that can be compared with America. America basically, focus more on entertaining the world and basically spreading its devilish and unrighteous decree all over the planet, in the form of promoting homosexuality, same-sex marriages, all the filth that they put into their Hollywood movies, all those different things right there. Okay, and then just continuously stealing from these nations through false accusation and illegal invasions. And I'll continue. Okay, he shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him true. It is drawn and cometh out of the body, yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him. All darkness shall be hid in his secret places. A fire not blown shall consume him. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle. The heavens shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. And so what happened to Mike Tyson? He had once had $400 million, the same way how America had all of this money, And then Mike Tyson got in debt, heavy debt, with divorces and just luxurious life. He had like what, 6 mansions, 100 cars, paying for all his entourage, singing with America, giving its money over to all these other nations, getting itself in more and more and more debt. But right now, America's what, $35 trillion in debt? No, hardly any planes are flying in the sky, but they have all this so-called stimulus that's going out there to try to revive the economy. And you can see here right now, nobody's really buying it across the rest of the world, and you can see that in this news feed here, that these nations are not afraid of them anymore. Okay, they've seen this nation lose to essentially what amounts to men walking with bow and arrows in Afghanistan, and they celebrated 2 weeks ago saying, "Hey, we beat y'all. Okay, we beat the great America. 14 years and y'all couldn't beat us. Okay, lives lost, family lives destroyed over here. Trillions of dollars spent on what? And Mountain Man made them flee. And so that's what you're seeing right here, right now. So if Russia is seeing that America couldn't stop the guys, the Taliban in Afghanistan, and of course Russia had gone and fought them before and failed miserably, then why are they going to have respect? So they've been working on getting their strategic weapons together like that, and they're ready to go. And they actually showed that by bringing those doing that true build up to see what America is going to respond to, and America backed down. Okay, so that tells you what is coming. So the same thing too with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson eventually did not want to face tough opponents anymore. He wanted to just face little chumps, and even these chumps start kicking his butt, like this guy, start kicking his butt. Okay, so what then happened? This is the same thing that what Revelations 18:7 said. How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she has said in her heart, I sit a queen, and I'm no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Okay, and all Mike Tyson saw was basically sorrow after he came out of, the highlight of his life, which was, back in these days. He saw all these sorrows. Okay. He had at one point in time weighed about 300 pounds. Now look at this guy compared to this guy. Okay. I mean, you can see him over the years, and there he is right there. Okay. So he's going through those sorrows. He's going through those sorrows the same way Babylon is going through these sorrows right now. Yahawashi is judging this place right now. This place is under Inquisition because this place has been built on the blood of the Hebrew Israelites. Okay. The Latino, the so-called Negroes or African Americans in this nation, and also the so-called Native Americans. Okay, and we're continuously having our blood spilled in the streets as we speak, as I'm speaking to you right now in this lesson. Okay, every day, they had those trials, and we're still being, our men and women are still being shot and killed, and they don't care anymore. They're just doing it, and just, it's become like breathing air right now for these Edomites to actually do these things to us. Okay, so the same thing when you're going with Mike Tyson. Okay, so now America's trying to build itself back, and so this is you see now Biden trying to pump and reinvigorate this country. After this pandemic has happened. Same thing. Mike Tyson. He decided, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to try to get my body back, and I'm going to try to get back in the ring there. Why? Because he's still trying to buy on his name, because he does have a name brand, Mike Tyson, even though he has lost to these guys, and these guys actually have a better record than he does and actually have defeated him, yet still he is the man that everybody wants to see. And so you can see right here, here's a 54-year-old man that is trying to come back out, and this is Babylon, the whore, okay, trying to get back up and step back up. But the rest of the nations who are up and coming, they're not intimidated by it anymore. Like what, you've had your time dancing on the pole. It's our time right now, and that's why you see China and and Russia are starting to come up, and that actually puts me right into Revelations. No, I'm sorry, slack here. Isaiah 14. And worse, I'm going to start off. I had 17 to 20, but I'm going to start off from for the time being here. I'm going to start off with this. You know what? I'm going to read the whole thing. Isaiah 14:17-20. And it shall be as a chased roe, and as a sheep that no man take it up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone into his own land. And that is going to be all these, when these Edomites walking up to these so-called Asians, who are Moabites, and saying, hey, you should go back to your land, get out, we don't want you. They should not, the Moabites should not be taking that personally. You're going to run, you're going to wish you had run and left America when you had a chance, okay? Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. And what does that mean when Yahawashi sends a judgment over here? Those of you, you Indians, so-called Indians and Asians who driving around your expensive Lexus, have your great six-figure job, look and basically spit on the poor so-called African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans in this country because we don't have anything. You think yourself as one of these Edomites, you're going to have that sword thrust through you, okay? If you stay here and you don't leave. Their children also should be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses should be spoiled and their wives ravished. Yep, Esau is going to get payback for what he did to us, okay? Behold, I will stir up the Medes. Yep, now you can see right now the Medes are being stirred up, okay? They're speaking boldly against them, which shall not regard silver and for gold, and they shall not delight in it. Hey, Putin is not looking to get riches. Putin wants to dominate and be the next superpower, okay? Okay, so that spirit that Yahawashi is going to be putting into them, for this now awakened bear that's been in slumber. This is no longer a Cold War. This is now hot. And you can hear in that general's voice the concern that they have because they have these old, outdated, nuclear arsenals, okay, that cannot, the defense system that they thought that was impenetrable, now you have hypersonic missiles, and they're years from developing the ability to take those out, okay? So why? Because like Mike Tyson, when he had all the things, all these great things going for him, he did not train properly, okay? And so what happened? You had chumps that were training and preparing to whoop his ass, okay? While he was out there partying and doing all these different things there and glorifying himself, okay? Holyfield, who thought to be washed up, whooped his ass and became the champion, okay? Humiliate his ass. And so that's what you see going on right now with the United States is the military is now turned into a more of a, promote the female type. You have female generals now. You have all these, you have now, the military is turning into more like, LBGQ, TQ, whatever the hell that is, and, promoting, feminism, okay, which is, okay, that the women should be doing what the man is doing, like that. And so anything like even that's physical, because a woman naturally is not as physically strong as a male, and now has to be modified. Everything is turned into paperwork and feelings, and you can even ask these the drill sergeants and all these people out there. They can tell you the military that they were in, say 20 years ago, is not the same right now. It's gotten very soft, complacent, okay? And now it's time for that fight because the Medes have been stirred up. All right, let me continue on. Their bows also should dash the young man to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eye shall should not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency, shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall now be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt for generations to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch their tent, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. And America is going to become like what Jurassic Park is. Okay, and you can go, further. We can go further into that at another time. But basically, this is going to become a place where, in the future, this is going to be a great place for sightseeing, where you will fly over in one of the chariots and look and go, wow, and you give all glory and honor to Yahawashi Yahawashi for freeing us out of this wicked kingdom. Okay, and so that's the future right there. America's still trying to, like Mike Tyson, a washed up nation is still trying to stand its ground and, coming back out there trying to create. And this is what you see, all this activities with these trials and all of these headlines. And every now and then, you get to find out what's going on with Kim Kardashian and all these other, these fat whores in this nation who had no value to anything, to distract you. And as you can see here, Mike Tyson, they're trying to bring him back. He had put this war tattooed on his face, back in the day, once he realized that he can't fight anymore, he's trying to make himself look as scary as possible with these type of war tattoos on his face. But basically, he had been eroded. He had become a base, and this is what you're seeing is happening right now with Babylon. Babylon is becoming an abased nation. Okay, these people are stupid. How do you sit down and not prepare for this? How do you not prepare for this? Okay, America is caught off guard. That's what's going on right now. It is being punked on the national scene, and this is what happened. Putin just proved his point. Okay, so those people walking around going, "We are the baddest military." You have not read the scripture to see what's going to happen. Okay, and you jakes that are putting your ass on the line, thinking you're going to get a retirement. The only retirement you're going to get is when those nukes come down. If you don't turn your life to Yahawashi and repent, is when those nukes come down. When those nukes come down on this nation and obliterate it, and you die in the lake of fire. All right, this is not your nation. In my previous video I've done, I've told you that basically they don't care about you. And there's a lot of example out there in the public in the way they have no problems pointing a weapon at you and taking you out, even if you're in that doggone uniform. All right. So you can see here, now in this case here, I'm using Mike Tyson as Babylon. I'm using this is Evander Holyfield. He's going to be basically Putin, or Russia, and really Lennox Lewis here is going to be considered China. But really, we know that the real rivalry here is really Mike Tyson and Holyfield. All right. So, okay. So that's the reason why when you look at that with the Medes being stirred up, that's really going to be Russia that's going to come and whoop America's ass. Okay. True. As directed by the Almighty Yahawashi. Okay. So they do trade. Okay. Just like in the real world, you can see here there are these Mike Tyson, Holyfield, and Lennox Lewis all posing together. They're all ex-champion. They all went to the well, Mike Tyson didn't go to the Olympics, but they do trade. Okay, Mike Tyson do talk with these guys and everything like that. But you better think about it right here. Okay, now you see this here, and this. The precept I'm going to use for this is Psalms 55 and 21. And it says, "The word of his mouth was smoother than butter, but war was in his side. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords." And so Mike Tyson will talk very nice with these guys, but do you think that Mike Tyson is not really thinking about this? He's thinking about that. Okay? He's also thinking about this. And so he really actually don't really like these guys. He really wants to come back and fight. And so he has waited patiently. Okay. The same thing with Esau. Remember, the scripture where it talks about Esau said that, when the time is right, time is right, he is going to come after Jacob, which is Israel, which is what you're seeing right now, the persecution that's going with us. And eventually he's going to come at us to basically annihilate us. And he's been annihilating us through his police force, his genocidal medicine, his justice, his injustice system, and also through all of the other little laws and legislation that he's put up that has kept our people in constant division, fighting each other for scraps of food, and have no hope whatsoever, and continuously hoping to get something from Esau rather than turn into the true power, Yahawashi, who has decreed the destruction of this place. But then I digress. That's the two-third. They don't want to do it. That's they'll come back in the heavenly kingdom through the righteous man that will stand up boldly to this devil here right now. Okay, so Mike Tyson does have war in his heart, but guess what? So does the other guys. Okay, they have war in their heart too. And as you can see here, as Mike Tyson, when Holyfield saw that Mike Tyson wants to kind of step back up again, it's the same way Russia see that with this pandemic. The U.S. is planning on disrupting the whole economy, the whole global economy, and really basically cornering the whole entire earth with its nonsense and its lies. They've stepped up and say, "Hey, look, fuck you, man. When you do this, we are going to respond back like that." And that's why he's making a great threat. And you can see here Holyfield knows that at some point, him and Mike Tyson is going to have to go and duke it back out again. All right. So that's basically how I compared this Mike Tyson with Babylon the Great and the demise of both of these guys. America right now is trying. It's on its America, Babylon, is now on its deathbed right now, about to be destroyed by Yahweh, by the coming Yahweh, by Shem Yahawashi. Yahawashi is going to put this place, is going to punish this place horribly, and then ultimately destroy it. And what we're seeing right here is a preview right now. Yahweh by Shem Yahawashi is giving us a preview, giving his hopefully like a preview of what is to come. And you will probably ask the question, well, aren't y'all worried? Y'all are here. Y'all are here on American soil. Wouldn't you be destroyed too? And we are not concerned about it, because why? We know that this has to come to pass. We're not to be afraid. We were told not to be afraid. Also, we are part of that hopeful elect. Okay, and we see our redemption drawing near, and as part of that, the hopeful elect, we are looking to be beamed up in those chariots and be able to have a grand view of the destruction of this place that has spilled our blood over and over and over again. And yes, we have all lived multiple times. Okay, you have to understand reincarnation. You can go to one of the elders' page and watch their channel. They go very deep into it. So we've all had our back whipped and worked in the court and field. Okay. That being said, I'd like to close out with Jeremiah 13, chapter 13, verse 16, and it says, "Give glory to the Lord your power before he causes darkness and before your feet stumble upon the dark mountains. And while ye look for light, he turn it into the shadow of death and make it gross darkness." Okay, and basically what is that saying? Okay, those of us in this truth, continue on in this truth. Those of you who are hearing this maybe for the first time, America, Babylon is not your salvation. Neither is Russia, neither is China. Russia nor China is going to be the next superpower. When you look in the mirror, if you're an Israelite male, look into the mirror, and if you're an hopeful elect, you believe in this truth, okay, taught by the elders, the brothers, the prophets, the teachers that have been set up to spread this gospel, look in the mirror. You're the next ruler. It's you. Someone that looks like you is the next ruler, okay? It's not these guys. They're going to do the biddings to prepare. Basically, they're going to fight the war that's going to put us in the rulership, and then Yahawashi is going to come and destroy all of them. Most of them, and the rest of them are going to go into slavery to build a kingdom. Okay, and we're going to have that opportunity to whoop their ass, beat them, and do unto Esau exactly what he did to us. Okay, and with that, I'd like to say all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahawashi, Ba'ashem, Rakal Kadash. And I'd like to thank the elders from GMS. I'd like to thank Amawan Abad. He's one of the great teachers. I have Yahweh Maccabees 144. He's a great teacher. And the elders and brothers from Mysteries of the Kingdom Trilogy. These are great teachers. Subscribe to their channel. My introduction to my videos always have a salutation to these great men that have stood up, and opened their eyes, and through the power of Yahweh Shem Yahawashi, open the eyes of those of us who are blind, walk around in this world blind. Okay, and with that, I'd like to say Shalom, bless you, and stay in this truth.